Good evening, everyone. Being 7 o'clock, I'd like to call the public hearing to order. First of all, the rules are simple. You can get up, say comments on any warrant article. However, it's limited to 3 minutes each, okay? At this point in time, I'd like to do the roll call for the Finance Committee. Teresa Manganelli,
Present.
Marianne Galizzo,
Present.
Christy Urio,
Here.
Brad Jackson,
Here.
Andy Levine,
Here.
Joe Lovino,
Here.
Scott Neville,
Here.
David Temang.
Here.
Great. At this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to the planning board to go over their articles.
All right. Good evening, guys. Thank you. In accordance with provisions of MGL, Master General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Planning Board is holding a public hearing tonight with the Finance Committee on articles proposed for the warrant at the annual town meeting to be held May 4th, 2024. We'll now address the articles. Article 29. To see if the town will vote to accept as public ways the following described streets as recommended by the Planning Board and laid out by the Select Board, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41 and Chapter 82 as amended, and shown on certain definitive subdivision plans approved in accordance with the rules and regulations governing the subdivision of land in the town of Wilmington, Massachusetts, which plans are recorded at the Middlesex North Registry of Deeds and copies of which are on file in the office of the town clerk, and to authorize the Select Board to acquire by purchase, gift, or eminent domain such land and slope, drainage, and other easements as may be necessary to effectuate the purpose of this article. And further, to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money to be spent by the town manager with the approval of the Select Board for such purposes. Rather than reading the entire property description, I will jump to the bottom and refer to it as parcel is depicted as Green Meadow Drive on a definitive plan in Wilmington, Massachusetts, Garden of Eden, prepared for Duffer Realty Trust and recorded at the Middlesex North Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 242, Plan 119. Said parcel contains 77,067 square feet, more or less. Are there any comments or questions from the board or finance committee on this article? Okay. Are there any comments or questions from the public on this article? Okay. We'll move on. Oh, no. We'll move on. Article 30. To see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw and associated zoning district map of the town of Wilmington as follows: to create a new MBTA Communities multifamily overlay district, or to take any other action related thereto. Rather than reading the entire article, I will give an overview of the sections of the bylaw and zoning map that are proposed to be added or amended. Add a new section 6.12, section 6.12 MBTA Communities multifamily overlay district. 2, amend the zoning district map by superimposing the MBTA Communities multifamily overlay district on the underlying zoning on the following parcels: Main Street Mixed Use Subdistrict, map 42, parcels 22, 22E, 22F, 22H, 22K, 22J, 24. Map 43, parcels 1, 2, 3, 3A, 4, 4A, 4B. Burlington Avenue Subdistrict, map 29, parcel 1. Deming Way Subdistrict, map 30, parcel 1. West Street Subdistrict, map 71, parcels 3, 5, 6, 7, 18. 3, amend section 2.1, sections 2.1, 2.2, table 1, table 2, section 6.5.3, and section 6.11. I will now ask the planning director to give an overview of the proposed article.
Thank you. Valerie Gingrich, Director of Planning and Conservation. I'm going to go through the article, but first I wanted to just give some background. This article is in response to the MBTA community requirement that was signed by Governor Baker in 2021, and it impacts 177 MBTA communities. And the requirement is an as-of-right multifamily housing zoning district of reasonable size. So, and I want to make a point. There's been a little bit of confusion sometimes. This is not affordable housing. This is full price, just housing that's required for zoning. Before we get into the proposal, though, I wanted to go over some of the impacts, the financial impacts of not complying with this requirement. And one of those impacts is a reduction in housing authority funding. I think it's about 11% of their capital funding would be cut from them. And then we'd be ineligible for grants like the $3.8 million grant we got for the Lubbers Brook Culvert in 2021. That would be off the table for us. We'd have to pay for culvert upgrades and those types of projects with other funds. And then funding that we're anticipating, there's going to be an application to the MVP grant program this year for design funds for the Martins Brook Culvert over 62. And we're going to be asking for $350,000 from that grant program. And then it's anticipated that we'd also ask for construction funds up to, I actually think it's $3 million. I think that slide's wrong. And those grant opportunities would be impacted by noncompliance. The other more kind of open-ended statement has been that other discretionary funding decisions would be impacted. And there's been interviews where Governor Healy has talked about roadways, schools, bridges being impacted. We don't know exactly what that means yet. But we do know that the grant that was taken from Milton for a seawall, that grant program was not on the list of grant programs. So it's the impacts are kind of going beyond the advertised list and spreading out into other funding decisions. You may also know that Milton was sued by the AG's office, and that's sort of playing out now. So zoning. This is a zoning requirement. There is no requirement that housing actually be constructed as part of this. It's a zoning requirement, and zoning is really the possibility of something happening, right? So if you have a parcel and you tear up all the buildings down, and zoning says what you can put back, right? So uses as of right comes up. As of right use just means that you're allowed to do it, right? So you don't have to go to a board and ask permission to do a use. You're just allowed to do it. So multifamily housing in these districts would be allowed uses as of right. Another thing that comes up is dimensionals like setbacks. So how far you have to be with your building from property lines, or how tall you can build a building. Those are all pieces of zoning that kind of come together to tell you what you can do on a site. Doesn't matter what's there currently, it's the possibility of what you can do in the future. So that's the requirement, not a construction requirement. And now getting into the specifics of what we're required to zone for. So we have to have a 50-acre minimum district. Half of it has to be within half mile of the train station. And then we need a unit capacity of 1,248 units. Now there's a footnote here about the 1,248. I won't go into great detail, but this is what the state spreadsheet has to compute to. It's not necessarily how many units could be built even, because their spreadsheet and their maps are a little bit, they're not exactly accurate. So, they don't take into account all the wetlands on a site maybe. They're just the mapped wetlands. So that number wouldn't actually be the number of units that could be built, but the spreadsheet needs to say that. Anyway, I can get into that more if you'd like. But so the planning board was tasked with kind of putting their feelings aside about an unpopular requirement and coming up with a proposal that meets all the requirements and is kind of a best option for compliance. And the focus was on our existing multifamily and commercial areas. Our existing multifamily areas, if we're zoning them to be multifamily, there's not going to be a change, in what's actually on the ground. So those were focused on for this district. We had to avoid groundwater protection district and floodplain district because we can't have any special permits involved. And then there was an online survey in August and September of last year that really guided the board in figuring out where to place these sub-districts and what this zoning would look like. So the proposal is the MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay District. We're calling it MOD. And it's an overlay district. So an overlay district is basically just added on top of the options that already exist. So if you're in a commercial district and you can build commercial buildings, this option of multifamily would be added onto what you can do on that parcel. So you can still do the commercial, or you could choose the multifamily. And we created some 3 sub-districts within the half mile of the train: Main Street, Burlington Ave, Deming Way. And then outside the half mile, which we can have half of the district outside the half mile, is the West Street sub-district. And I'm going to go through each one of those briefly, starting with West Street, which is the district outside the half mile, of course. So to orient you, up at the top of the screen is Lowell Street, and you'll see I-93 on the left side of the map, and West Street winding down between those red lines. So this district is comprised of basically 4 parcels. The first one is at the corner, 100 to 104 West Street. This parcel was approved for a 40B project earlier last year. And so it's already approved for multifamily housing, and that's an image of what they're proposing. Moving down the street, skipping over 108 for a second, 114 is the storage facility, and 121 is Regency Place, which is the apartments, the 40B development there. In between 100 and 104 and 114 is 108. There's a single-family home on that parcel. So those 4 parcels are included. There's a 3-story height limit, 20-foot setbacks as typical, and then 2 parking spaces per unit. So again, you'd have to tear down the storage facility and start over to build multifamily housing, and you would have to follow those requirements that are set forth in the zoning. The other 3 sub-districts are the ones that are within a half mile of the train. And we've got Main Street to the north, we've got Burlington Ave to the south, and Deming Way out to the west, and I'll go through each one. So Burlington Ave really consists of Metro, the apartments. That parcel is its own sub-district, and within that sub-district, there's a picture of it. So it's already apartments, right? So nothing changes there. And you've got a 3-story height limit, 20-foot setbacks, and a 1.5 parking space per unit requirement. So again, focusing on things that are already multifamily, so that building multifamily really doesn't change a whole lot. It's already there. Moving on to Deming Way, which is out further on Burlington Ave. This is the Housing Authority's parcel with affordable senior housing on it, and some images of that housing and the office. And in this sub-district, there's again a 3-story height limit, 20-foot setbacks, and a 1.25 parking spaces per unit for this sub-district. And then lastly, we have the Main Street mixed-use sub-district. So to orient you, because this is turned a little bit, you've got the train station down in the corner, left corner, and Main Street is the red line on the lower red line that runs up to the north. And then the other red line that borders the district is actually the train tracks. So this is the area between Main Street and the train tracks, from the train station all the way up to the Hyundai dealership, and then all of those uses in between, which I've kind of highlighted some of those just to give you some context there. And in this district, we have a 2 or 3 story height limit. I'll explain that. A 20-foot setback and 1.5 parking spaces per unit. So we called this district, sub-district, a mixed-use district because we wanted to encourage ground floor commercial uses because it's Main Street. So we wanted to keep it active. We wanted to have a Main Street feel. So the way that that is played out through the zoning is that if you're going to do residential only and not do a commercial component, you're limited to a 2-story height limit. But if you decide to do a ground floor commercial use, you are able to do a 3-story height. And I always like to use the example, I don't know why, of House of Pizza. So if you tore down the House of Pizza and this zoning was in place, you could build a 3-story building, you could put House of Pizza back in the first floor, and then you could put 2 stories of condos or apartments on top of that. Some other elements, streetscape design requirements to especially important on Main Street and the other places, but to make sure that pedestrian experience is the most important aspect of it, to make it a Main Street feeling where you've got generous sidewalks in the front, you've got amenities for pedestrians, and then you're putting the parking on the side and in the back. So that the pedestrian really is experiencing a streetscape that's enjoyable. Another thing is affordable units. So this is a requirement for zoning for full price housing. We're actually requesting from the state we have to make a special argument to ask for 15% of it to be affordable, as we typically do in our other multifamily districts in town. If they don't approve the 15%, the fallback would be 10% affordable in each development. And this helps us keep up with our 40B 10% requirement so we don't fall behind. And then we did, in the zoning proposal, we needed to make a clarification to our site plan review bylaw, just to be clear that as of right uses that you're allowed to do, we specified and clarified that through site plan review with the planning board, those uses can't be denied. They can be reasonably conditioned, but they can't be denied because they're allowed. So the deadline for complying with this requirement is the end of this year, and having a compliant district would avoid financial impacts and legal enforcement. And just wanted to end on this slide of potential financial impacts. Once again, since this is partially a finance committee meeting, I thought I'd end with this, and I'm happy to take any questions through the chair.
Through the chair. What about the train station in North Wilmington?
We did look at the train station in North Wilmington, especially the Princeton development area that's approved as a 40B. The challenge with that area is that the parcel, it's not just that front part that's going to be the buildings. It runs way out back.
Yeah, 20 acres.
Yeah, it's pretty large.
Yeah.
And it includes, so there would be a large wetland crossing, and then there's a big piece of upland back there. But to get back to that upland, you have to have a lot of wetland impacts, and whether you could do that or not is sort of up in the air, and you would create a lot of environmental impacts. So, and that and the survey that was put out last year, it actually tended toward Main Street, so that's the way it went.
And that'll satisfy the state.
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I have a question. Is there, will condos be allowed, or does it have to be all apartments?
You want me to take all these, right? Okay. Yes, so zoning can't really specify between condos or apartments. So it would be the developer's choice of whether to do condos or apartments.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the Finance Committee? Any questions from the board? Okay, any questions from the public? Comments, questions from the public on this article? Okay, we'll move on. Article 30. Article 33, to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw and associated zoning map of the town of Wilmington by voting to rezone from the residential 60, R60, to residential 20, R20, the following described parcel of land, or take any other action related thereto. The land at and known as Edgewood Street, containing approximately 2.7 acres of land shown on Wilmington Assessor's Map 11, Parcel 6. Is the petitioner here? It appears they are.
Good evening, Kristen Costa with LA Associates, here on behalf of Elm Tree Development LLC petitioner for this article. With me tonight is the project engineer, excuse me, Doug Lees. This parcel, the zoning map here shows it pretty clearly. Parcel 11, I'm sorry, map 11, parcel 6, as you said, approximately 2.7 acres, currently R60 zone. The zoning article request is for a rezone to R20. As you can see here, to the north of the subject parcel are R10 lots, or zone for R10, orange there. And then to the east are all adjacent parcels, R20. So essentially, the parcels surrounded by R10 and R20 lots, zone. So the petitioner is looking to rezone it, and together with that, should the article move forward and the rezone happen, there would be, this would be a potential development situation here for lots and in road improvement, not only the extension of Bruning, which is where the frontage would be, Bruning exists to about halfway here. There'd be an extension there to an 81G process through the planning board. And the petitioner is also looking, considering improvements to the other side of Bruning here. And then Second Avenue currently exists, but it's in poor condition, particularly as it approaches Bruning. There's a drainage concern there. It's been going on for years, and so there's some damage to the road. And the petitioner would consider, as part of this development, should it happen, improvements to that, the drainage if possible, and the roadway to the extent that would make sense. So that's basically what he's looking to do, and looking for your support.
Yeah, just a couple questions. So,
Yep.
The corner lot there that's not included, top left of the, why wouldn't that be included too?
That's a town land. That's
Okay.
a town lot, yeah. I don't know if it's actually. You can probably see it from there. Yeah.
Petitioner owns the land now?
Yes.
Yeah. What is the alternative? So
Oh,
it's
if the-
R60 now. If it stays R60, what happens?
One lot, two?
I guess, is there an intent? Is there an intent with the land at R60 if it stays? Okay, so the intent is to develop it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions from Finance Committee or the board? Yep.
Excuse me. So you said Burning Road comes down, Burning Road comes down about halfway right now, so you're going to extend that road and do improvements to Second Avenue?
Yes.
Just a question, because Dorchester Street is the usual access to get around there, right?
That's right.
So are any of those accepted ways in town right now?
Dorchester is paved, am I right? That's. Yeah.
Are they accepted ways, though, because that's been a
I
discussion
don't know if they're
quite a bit
official
lately.
map or not. I'm not sure. We'd have to look it up.
Is there another? Yep.
I have a question. You mentioned that there are drainage concerns and the petitioner would consider fixing it. I'd be much more
To the
inclined
best
to
of
vote
his ability,
favorably
that
if they
we'd
would
have to do-
agree to fix it.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's okay. I said I'd be much more in favor of agreeing to this if they would agree to fix it. I could consider it and just dismiss it immediately once this is approved. So what commitment do we actually have from the petitioner to take care of the land?
Is there any comments or questions from the public on this article? Nope. Okay, moving on.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Article 34. To see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to enter into an agreement, the terms of which shall be determined by the selectmen, select board, to sell, convey, or otherwise dispose of all or part of the following described parcels, following a determination made by the town manager that the land is not needed for any municipal purpose, and in accordance with Chapter 3, Section 16 of the bylaws of the inhabitants of the town of Wilmington revised, and other applicable law, 2 adjacent parcels being located at 0 Malloy Road and described in the town of Wilmington assessor records as map 40 parcel 130, is that correct? And parcel 129, or take any other action there related thereto. Is petitioner here? Yep.
So, should I state my purpose for the petition?
Yeah, so name and address, and then, what are you looking to do? What are you
Yeah,
asking the town
Kevin
for?
Barrett, 6 Parker Street, and the intent was, I live a street over, and I live in, really, the thought process was I was walking by. I live in it's 2 units right now, and I guess, I was looking I have 2 5-year-old twins, and just looking for more of a traditional kind of single-family home with a little bit better yard, and not again, not to have 2 units, to raise my kids. That was the thought process behind that.
Yeah, it's just known as Malloy Road.
But his address is one.
Oh, I'm sorry, your current address?
6 Parker.
6 Parker, so over here somewhere. Okay. This is, the land on either side of it on Malloy Road, are those town of Wilmington as well? They are?
Town-owned land?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Okay. Does the Board or Finance Committee have any questions on the article?
The total square footage that these two would combine.
Do you have the total square footage?
You know what? Maybe not. I have it somewhere in my packet here. We have one lot is 14,810, and then the second one was 4,792 square feet.
4,792? Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you all set?
Just one more question. What is it currently zoned?
I just knew it as kind of town-owned land, and
No, the zoning, like R10, R20, is that what you're asking?
yeah, you know what? I'm sorry. Probably, do I have it? Oh, you know what? My assessor's card doesn't have zoning on it. I apologize.
Planning Director may be able to answer that.
Okay.
Would this make it a buildable lot?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the reason I chose 2 lots to, just to meet the requirements.
Meet the
Is it a little
requirements
bit-
to build a shed.
It's a little
To,
bit like,
to build a single-family home.
So that would be need a variance. Does your home abut this property now?
It's the street over, so there's a cut-through. I think it's Laurel Street. I think it goes Parker, and then there's Laurel, and then Malloy.
so I'm going to go to Sean real quick.
Besides coming into the town hall and just looking at, I think besides looking at the two lots, just making sure that, it meets some of the setbacks. Are you kind of referring to like the land itself, if it's, if there's ledge or Right. No, and probably research was probably limited. I think it was just I kept walking by and probably walked by it 1,000 times before it kind of popped into my brain that it was kind of vacant. So that's kind of where it came from.
Someone asked Valerie to just add something real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, so we did, in preparation, we did do some research on the two parcels, my office and the engineering division, and we found that the parcels, one of them was actually taken in the 70s for recreational purposes. The other was at one point at town meeting transferred to the select board as park commissioners. So the two parcels do have an open space purpose. So I don't know, and I see Council's right behind you, and I defer to him, but I do think they're probably protected open space and
Okay.
would be able to be surplus.
Okay.
Just wanted to add that in.
Okay.
Do you have a comment on that? Yep. I'm going to ask town council to just.
Thank you. Thought it'd be a good opportunity to jump in based on what Valerie just said. So, the process for disposing of town property has a couple of different steps, as you probably know. One of the steps, as addressed in the town's inhabitant bylaws, has to do with the town manager determining if the property is surplus for the needs of the town. And that's the first step. It's chapter 40, section 15A that talks about the process for transferring property. First step is the surplus determination. Second step is the actual transfer by vote of town meeting. If property is held for a specific purpose, as opposed to being held for general municipal purposes, it then requires a 2/3 vote of town meeting to transfer it from the specific purpose to another purpose. So in this case, if we're talking about open space purpose, you'd be transferring it from open space to the purpose of disposition. But as Valerie has pointed out, if it is in fact held for the specific purpose of open space, then, and I think you've all heard of Article 97, we have the issue of Article 97 protection. Article 97 places significant protection on open space, park, recreation, water supply property. So there's a great deal of interest. This is pursuant to the Commonwealth's Constitution and interpretations by the Attorney General and many cases that address what has to be done if you seek to dispose of Article 97 protected property. And so it's not as simple as if, say, it was held for library purposes or DPW purposes, just a town purpose. Once it's held for this open space purpose, that transfer then involves an approval through the state legislature. You would actually have to go to the legislature and get a vote of 2/3 of both branches of the state legislature to authorize a disposition of property that's protected by Article 97. Then, on top of that, the town would likely be required by the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs to come up with compensatory property, so property of equal conservation or open space value to compensate for the loss of the open space property. So it's not as simple as just transferring it from, if it was held for just for tax title purposes and by the tax title custodian, determine surplus for that purpose, transfer the purpose of disposition. That's the easy one. In a case where property, if it is in fact held for one of the protected Article 97 procedures or protections, there are a number of steps that the town would have to jump through. Now keep in mind, on top of that, there's the additional requirement that any time the town disposes of property has to determine the value of that property through procedures accepted in the appraisal industry. And if the property is determined to be valued at $35,000 or more, so if it's a buildable lot, up. In Wilmington, you're looking at a substantial value in property. At that point, the town would have to issue a request for proposals to dispose of that property. It goes through a competitive process. So a number of steps, but as Valerie pointed out, the key concern and issue here, and I think I had raised it when we were discussing this property earlier, internally, is that if it's held for a particular purpose, there's that the transfer issue is elevated, and if it's held for Article 97 protected purposes, it's elevated even further. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
So just, that was a lot, but.
I know, I apologize.
But I guess, is that feels like the town's responsibility up until the point where they put it out to bid? I mean, that sounds like a lot for the town to do, right?
It is a
That's
lot.
not something that somebody else would do. That's
And
not
I think
something
threw-
that he would do. Or
I threw a lot at you because there's a lot that's
Yeah.
packed into what looks
Okay.
like a small article. And I think you're entirely correct. And for better or for worse, because it's town-owned property and the town will be authorizing this disposition, it puts upon the town. And I guess the town could certainly turn to the individual and say, all right, you go find us compensatory land, but that's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
And the state would be looking to you. Again, you have to go through the approval process. There are local approvals. Then, like I said, it's actually a petition to the legislature to free this property up. And the town would have to do that. It'd be voted by town meeting, petitioned by the select board. It's not a simple process. We do that for major projects on a municipal scale. On a scale like this, it's very difficult. So a little bit of research, and it sounds like Valerie has done some, to confirm, but if it is confirmed as open space property, there's probably a reason why it's been sitting open for so long. It's not so easy to dispose of it. So I apologize for speaking long, but I wanted to unpack a lot for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I learned a lot in the last 2 minutes. Just one question, is there a percentage of open space that has been determined, or is there a level that has to be met? Or is it just, if it's deemed open space, then you have to go through the process for that?
I'll let you, I'm sure you'll be clear about it.
Yeah, well, it's not quite like a percentage issue. It really is how the property is designated. There's, again, a lot of case law that gets into that designation, but if the property was taken for that specific purpose, that's the designation. So it's not, you don't look like across the town, you look at each parcel.
That's all I have.
Are there any other questions? Any questions from the public? Comments, questions from the public on this one? Okay, we'll move on. Okay. Article 35, to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw and associated zoning map of the town of Wilmington as follows, or take any other action related thereto by rezoning from general business GB to general industrial GI, the parcel of land shown as parcel 11 on Wilmington Assessor's Map 39. I won't read the entire property description. Is the petitioner present? I don't believe. Yep, I just want to read it. Yep. So, petitioner's not here, but I do have a letter from the petitioner. Please be advised that I intend to withdraw the above referenced article from consideration. I'm also providing a copy of this letter to Chair of the Finance Committee and the Planning Board. Signed, Ben Wright, petitioner. So, article's been withdrawn. Okay, so at this point, we're done. Yep. So at this point, the Planning Board will adjourn to room 9, where we'll talk about those previous 5 articles, and the Finance Committee will take it.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, the Article 1 has to do with the proposed upcoming town election, and so we'll pass on that one. Article 2, Teresa?
To hear reports of committees and act thereon.
Mrs. Town Manager, it's going to be... Article 2. Any reports coming up, or?
No, that's something we have right now, no.
Okay,
Okay?
okay. Mary Ann?
Article 3, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the purpose of paying unpaid bills of previous years or take any other action related thereto.
Zero.
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 Thank you.
Article 4, to see if the town will vote to authorize the treasurer collector with the approval of the select board to enter into an agreement under the provisions of Chapter 44, Section 53F of the Massachusetts General Laws with one or more banks doing business in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts during fiscal year 2025 for a term not to exceed 3 years, which will permit the town of Wilmington to maintain funds on deposit with such institutions in return for said institutions providing banking services or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Chair, as you know, this is a standard article
Yes,
that
yes.
is put in every year.
Public comment? Mr. McDonald, 3 minutes and on topic.
Just a question. I thought this was a public hearing.
It is.
So it's my understanding a public hearing is different than public comments. So I just wanted to see if you can give us the names of the banks that the town, that holds the town's money and the balances in each of those banks.
That would be directed to Finance Director, Mr. Morris.
You don't have to provide those? Is it true that one bank has like $80 million in it? I was just, I guess what I was getting at is,
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
As has been indicated, this is a public hearing. The public has a right to make comments, no requirement to give responses. This is not an opportunity for the public to ask for documents or information. This is simply a public hearing. The public makes comments and can be limited, as indicated by the chair, the amount of time that the individual members of the public gets to speak.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair.
okay, so just for the record, I know you're not going to answer this question, but I would like you to be prepared at town meeting to have an answer to this question because it is a banking article. The people do have a right to know, and the people do have a right to know if the FDIC only insures an account up to $250,000 and there's $80 million in one particular bank, what happens if that bank fails? Do you know the answer to that? Is there any type of security measure that's in place?
Sir, we're done. Thank you.
Okay, can you have those answers for a town meeting? Thank you.
Brad?
Article, excuse me, Article 5, to see how much money the town will appropriate for the expenses of the town and the salaries of several town officers and departments, and determine how the same shall be raised, whether by taxation, transfer from available funds or otherwise, or take any other action related thereto.
Again, that's the standard payroll article that will have all the numbers.
Actually, it's the town budget, and
Yep.
there's been changes to part of the budget. Shawshing Tech, do you want to address, Mike, do you want to address that, please?
Yeah, several things changed in the budget since the presentations were made to you. Some of them I'm sure you're aware of. First one is Shawshing Tech. They came in with their final budget. There's some $734,000 and change left on that spreadsheet I just gave you. So we're recommending that you vote, if you so desire, on the amended number from Shawshing Tech.
Okay.
In maturing debt and interest, also part of Article 5. There are 2 items in new debt that we're going to issue. We do not know the interest rates on those yet, because we haven't issued the debt. I did some math on those. I'm a little concerned about possible rate increases by the time we get it done. I just want to be safe, so I've asked that you increase the amount for the senior center by $100,000 and the amount for the town hall school administration building by $200,000. If we don't need this money, we won't obviously use it, but I want the wiggle room, if possible, to address any interest rate increases on that. In the budget book itself, there's a total amount for the Vector truck of $330,000. I think this was discussed a while ago, where the actual cost is $660,000, of which $330,000 is coming from water, $330,000 is coming from free cash. You need to vote that if you so wish again for $660,000 instead of the $330,000 that's in the book. The this is really just an English exercise, so you have the spending authorization of $660,000. In capital outlay, there was also an amount for a mini wing mower, whatever that is. That is for $50,000, and that was purchased with your help earlier this year, so there will be no need to vote in that amount for that, so it should be zero. The water fund does not require a vote. However, the $330,000 from the water fund is where the money's going to come for the vac truck, the second half of it. More significantly, in the water fund, on the capital outlay on the water fund, again, you're not voting on the water fund itself, but there's an amount of $4.5 million for the replacement of the water main on Main Street. That would require a bond issue that you would have to vote on. We are not ready to go forward with that. We are waiting for some state bids to be done late this year, early next year. Probably won't be anytime soon. You need to firm up the number, and again, we're not ready to go forward with that, so we're reducing the water appropriation, at least in the budget book, that you know you're going to appropriate, I guess, by $4.5 million. Answer any questions?
Anyone on the committee have any questions? From Mrs. Smegler?
Just to let the board interest here too, is the tasers, we also took that out of capital.
Okay.
Remember that was.
Yep. Thank you.
With regard to the Shawshing Tech, I went through their budget, and actually on the first page, I think it stated that the town had grants. The Shawshing Tech had grants for employees, and now those grants are expired, and that they're absorbing the full-time employees. And I think it's important for the public to know that the cost per student to go to the Shawshing Tech is about equal to Austin Prep, which is just around $24,000. And so my question is, with regard to grant money, it seems like they're dangling a carrot in front of us to get the grant money to take on an employee, which they didn't need the year before, and then you take the employee on, the grant money goes away, and then we have to absorb that these additional employees. And so my question is, has the board done any evaluation to see what the need is for those additional employees now when there wasn't a need before the grant? Have you evaluated that, Mr. Doherty?
Yes, we have, and we
And-
had a meeting with the superintendent. But thank you.
And
for your-
what particular,
Thank you for
what-
your comment.
No, I just wanted to know what vocation those teachers are in. Are they actual teachers or are they administrators?
I believe the teachers. I believe the teachers. Yeah. I have no idea, okay? Mrs. Smegler? Oh.
Article 6, to see if the town will vote to raise an appropriate transfer from available funds or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the purchase and equipping of new and/or replacement capital equipment, including but not limited to the following items, including any incidental or related expenses, and further to authorize the sale, trade-in, conveyance, or other disposition of any equipment being so replaced, such funds to be spent by the town department so indicated with the approval of the town manager, and to the extent set forth in Chapter 592 of the Acts of 1950, the Select Board as follows. Elderly Services Department, purchase of 1 replacement handicapped accessible van. Fire Department, purchase of 1 replacement ambulance. Department of Public Works, purchase of 1 replacement Vector truck. Purchase of 1 replacement heavy-duty front-end loader to be assigned to the Highway Division. Purchase of 1 heavy-duty baseball infield groomer to be assigned to the Parks and Grounds Division. Public Buildings Department, purchase of 1 replacement Ford F-550 box truck with liftgate. Purchase of 1 Ford Maverick pickup truck. School Department, purchase of 1 replacement handicap accessible minivan, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Town Manager, do you have numbers on these, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Elderly Services Department is for the purchase of one replacement handicap accessible van for $93,000. The Fire Department, purchase of one replacement ambulance, $475,000. And the reason, you may recall that we did one they got one last year, but these ambulances are 3 to 4 years out, right, Chief? On the lead time, so we're still a couple of years out from the one that we ordered last year. Department of Public Works is the purchase of one replacement Vector truck. That was, as mentioned by Mr. Morris, $660,000. Purchase of one replacement heavy-duty front-end loader to be assigned to the Highway Division, $205,000. Purchase of one heavy-duty baseball infield groomer to be assigned to the Parks and Grounds Division, where else? $38,000. Public Buildings Department, purchase of one replacement Ford F-550 box truck with a lift gate for $89,000. Purchase of one Ford Maverick pickup truck, $33,000. And for the school department, purchase of one replacement handicap accessible minivan for $75,000, or take any other action related thereto.
Thank you. Comments?
Just a question for the fire chief. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I was told that there was an ambulance that got in an accident on Route 93, and I wanted to know if that was true, if it was true, if it was totaled, and what the amount of money was that we got from insurance. And also, if the chief could explain to us, at a prior meeting, we were told that it's possible to buy a cabin chassis truck and then take a box from an ambulance and put it on that new vehicle. And I was just wondering if you could speak to us about that a little bit.
Thank you for your comments, but he doesn't have to answer.
Did we get any insurance money for that accident?
He doesn't have to answer. No one has to answer. Okay, you made
Can you
your
get that
comment.
in for us for town meeting so that,
You made your comment. Thank you. Next.
Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money to comply with the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Systems, MS4, requirements as part of the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES, including design and engineering costs and any other incidental and related costs and expenses, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Chairman, this is to stay in compliance with the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, the NPDES, the annual permit, and it's a $75,000.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? All right.
Article 8, to see if the town will vote to appropriate from the PEG Access and Cable-related Special Revenue Fund a sum of money to be expended under the direction of the Select Board for PEG Access Services pursuant to the provision MGL Chapter 44, Section 53F3/4, or take any other action related thereto.
Sir?
Mr. Chairman, as was stated, this is Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F3/4. It's $500,000.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Next on.
Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the funding of the 4th of July celebration, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Chair, as you know, this was started a few years ago, and this year we are asking to appropriate $50,000.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the audience? Seeing none?
Article 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the observance of Memorial Day and Veterans Day, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Chair, this is obviously for the Memorial Day and Veterans Day celebrations, and if you did notice in the budget, it has gone up, and we're asking for $13,000, and most of that is for the cost of the flowers that we place on the graves on Memorial Day.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board or the audience? Seeing none? Mary Ann?
Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute the sum of $750 each, a total of $1,500, for the purpose of renewing under the authority of Section 9 of Chapter 40 of the general laws as amended, the lease of Veterans of Foreign Wars Clubhouse for the purpose of providing suitable headquarters for the Nee Ellsworth Post 2458 of the Veterans of Foreign Wars of the United States. B, American Legion Clubhouse, Inc., for the purpose of providing suitable headquarters for the Wilmington Post 136 of the American Legion, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Chairman, this is another long-standing Section 9 of Chapter 40 of General Laws.
Yep.
It's $750 each for adequate places for these organizations to meet.
Great, thank you. Any comment from the board or audience?
Yes, maybe this is a question for the town council. Where there are bar rooms at these facilities and there's fights from time to time, if the town is paying money to lease the buildings, is the town at exposure for liability?
Is it okay? Isn't that also state law? Yeah. Great, thank you.
Article 12, to see if the town will vote to determine the spending limits for revolving accounts established pursuant to Section 53E and 1/2 of Chapter 44 of the General Laws and Section 5 of Chapter 73 of the Town of Wilmington Inhabitant Bylaws for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 24 and ending on June 30, 25 as follows, or take any other action related thereto. For revolving account compost bin, $4,500 spending authority limit. And for subsurface sewage disposal upgrade revolving fund, $200,000, both for fiscal year 2025.
Any
Mr.
questions
Chairman.
or comments from?
This is just a spending limit.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, next.
Article 13, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the rehabilitation and lining of an existing 24-inch corrugated metal drainage culvert in the vicinity of 340 Ballardvale Street, including engineering services to support design, permitting, and bid specifications, site preparation and construction costs, and any incidental or related costs and expenses, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Town Manager?
Mr. Chair, this is the $135,000, and our Director of DPW is here, but I believe the way they're going to do this with the 24-inch corrugated metal drainage culvert would be less intrusive to shut down that part of the road.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Any comments from the committee? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, next.
Article 14, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money to conduct a feasibility study for Lowell Street Fields / recreational area improvements, including any incidental or related costs and expenses, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Chair, the amount on this one is $50,000.
Okay, and that's the old Textron.
Correct.
Article 15, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute, a sum of money to conduct a feasibility study, schematic design, to locate a fire substation in North Wilmington, including any incidental or related costs and expenses, or take any other action related thereto.
Town Manager?
Mr. Chairman, this amount is for $600,000, and this has been on the, formerly used by the former town manager, square footage, and that's how they come up with the $600,000.
Okay, great, thank you. Any comments from the committee? Any comments from the public?
Mr. Semaglia, can you tell us what specific site this study is for? So you don't have a specific site, and you want the people to come up with $600,000. I just want to give you my opinion on this particular thing. If we need a fire and rescue service in that part of town, and we need it now, I think that we should be able to take 2 bays from the highway department and put emergency services in there if that need exists today. If he's asking for $600,000, then that means there must be a need that exists. Now, if we don't have a site, then this is a very foolish request. I personally believe that our highway department operations should be moved down to the recycling center with a new garage built there, and I think the fire department could have an ambulance and a first responder vehicle at that location, and it could happen tomorrow if people really wanted to secure the need in town. So I hope this board votes this down to have a feasibility study when we have an engineering department. We have a Board of Health lady who goes out and does ground testing. We have people on the highway department that are engineers, and to have to come up with $600,000 when you don't even have a site and you're supposed to have professionals in town, I think is ridiculous.
Thank you for your comment. Any other questions or comments? Next.
Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the installation of fiber connection at the new Elderly Services Center, Town Hall School Administration Building, and 4th of July Building, including any incidental or related costs and expenses, or take any other action related hereto.
Mr. Chairman, the amount on this is $50,000.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the committee? From public?
I see the building inspector here. We're looking for $50,000. Has there even been a building permit issued for the new town hall and school administration building? So there's no permit been issued. Questions exist as to whether or not they can have a sewer connection. I was told that the high school sewer line is a forced main and no one else can hook into it. I was also told that there's blasting that will be needed at the town hall site, which could divert water into those neighborhoods. If you remember, the Swain School had a flooding problem. Half the floor was below ground, which means that the water table from the existing ground is probably down about 3 feet. Any kind of drainage infiltration or septic would have to be at least 4 feet above the water table, maybe 5 if it was rapid absorption, which means a foot above that would be the base of the system, and you're looking to build that parking lot up about 5 feet. And it just seems like you're asking for money when there's no building permit, and there's a lot of questions that are unanswered about this site. And I think the people in the abutting properties should be aware of the blasting that will be needed for this building, the fact that they're already impacted by water, and the fact that there's, maybe Mrs. Newhouse could answer this question, our Board of Health Director. Has there been any submittal?
We're only looking for comments.
Yeah, I'm just asking if she maybe
Right
could.
now, we're only looking looking for comments.
I know that she's not going to answer it because you're going to
Thank
tell her not to,
Thank
but
you.
I would ask the Board of Health lady, Mrs. Newhouse, to have an answer at town meeting if there's even been
You're off topic.
a,
You're off topic.
it's for $50,000 for a town hall, school administration building with no permit. No building
You're off
permit.
topic.
So do they even have a septic
Mr.
permit?
McDonald,
Probably not.
any other comments? Next.
Article 17, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the maintenance of the police department firing range, including design and engineering costs and any incidental or related costs and expenses, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Town Manager.
Mr. Chairman, this is for $40,000 for the maintenance of the police firing range, to have the company come in and clean it out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any comments from the committee?
I think the public should be aware that,
Mr. McDonald, I was asking the committee if they had
Oh,
comments.
I'm sorry.
first, okay? Any comments? Okay, sir, go ahead.
I think the public in the town of Wilmington should know that this firing range is in a groundwater protection district, and even worse, it's in an area where our town has a well field. It's insane to have a firing range that's going to be costing us $40,000 to clean up in this particular area. There are many, I was up in Hudson today, there's a indoor shooting range there. There's many towns that have indoor shooting ranges. Why our police are not going to these shooting ranges is beyond me, and threatening our water and having to have us come up with $40,000 for this insane cleanup when it's not necessary. It should have never been opened back up. It was shut down because of the insanity of it, and then somebody thought they knew more and they opened it up again. It's just ridiculous.
Thank you for your comment.
Article 18, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the continued phase cemetery development, including design and engineering costs and any incidental or related costs and expenses, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Town Manager.
Mr. Chairman, this article is $60,000.
Thank you. Any comments from the committee? Comments from the public?
Regarding the cemetery, property was taken by eminent domain. It was taken at a very low price, and I saw an executive session with the selectmen, and I suspect that's in a lawsuit now. It was taken by eminent domain, and you can't even bury a body there because they didn't build the grade up high enough so that you can bury a body without it being in the water. Our senior center just incurred an extra expense to get rid of massive boulders. Those boulders could have been brought down to that cemetery as a retaining wall and built the grade up so you could actually bury a body. And now we're looking to have more expenses. So my question is there anybody who knows what the hell they're doing down at the cemetery?
Next. Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Jamie McGaldy, Public Works Director. That information is not accurate. We actually have already begun burying down at that new section, and we are not having a water problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can the kind gentleman tell us if they're burying bodies or cremation dust? Bodies or cremation? Full burials? How come we were told that the water table was too high there? Okay, I was at a meeting where they said that.
Next.
Article 19, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from department receipts or user fees a sum of money to operate the Department of Public Works Sewer Division enterprise, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Town Manager.
Mr. Chairman, this is $3,675,096.
Thank you. Any comments from the committee? Public? Seeing none? Next.
Article 20, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for engineering services for the design of a replacement pump station at Industrial Way Pump Station, including design and engineering costs and any incidental or related costs and expenses, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Town Manager?
Mr. Chairman, this one is for $135,000.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the committee? The public? Seeing none? Next.
Article 21, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the replacement of classroom projectors at the high school, including any incidental or related costs and expenses, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Town Manager?
Mr. Chairman, this is for $130,000. And if I may, Dr. Brand is on the screen behind you, and most of my department heads are here, and I just want to thank them for coming. And if you do have any questions specific, the department heads are here.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from the public, or seeing none? Next.
Article 22, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the replacement of network switches at the high school, including any incidental or related costs and expenses, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Chairman, this one is for $114,000.
Thank you. Any comments from the committee or the public? Seeing none? Next.
Article 23, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the replacement/upgrade of wireless access points within the high school building, including design and engineering costs, and any incidental or related expenses, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Town Manager?
Mr. Chairman, this one is for $90,000.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the committee? The public? Seeing none? Next.
Article 24, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money for the replacement, upgrade of Chromebooks in the schools across the district, including any incidental or related costs and expenses, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Town Manager?
Mr. Chairman, this one's for $75,000.
Thank you. Any comments from the committee or the public? Seeing none? Next.
Article 25, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money to deposit in the Other Post-Employment Liability Trust Fund established in accordance with MGL Chapter 32B, Section 20, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Town Manager?
Mr. Chairman, this is for $1 million.
Thank you. Any comments from the committee? Any comments from the public?
Would the town manager elaborate for the benefit of the public exactly what this $1 million covers?
Lou, you don't have to.
He doesn't know?
No, he doesn't have to answer. This is
No, but he
public.
doesn't know?
He doesn't have to answer.
But does he
Thank-
know?
Thank you
Do
for
you
your
know?
comment.
Well, why don't you want to answer and help the public out understand it?
Yes? Yeah, yeah. Ms. McDonald.
Are you a
can-
judge?
Mr. McDonald.
I thought he was a lawyer. I didn't know he was a judge.
You can sit down.
Article 26, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money to deposit in the Capital Stabilization Fund as established by vote on Article 23 at the April 27th, 1991 annual town meeting, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Town Manager.
Mr. Chairman, this is also for $1 million.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the committee or the public? Seeing none. Next.
Article 27, to see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, transfer from available funds or borrow pursuant to any applicable statute a sum of money to pay the Middlesex retirement system in addition to the annual assessment or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Town Manager.
Mr. Chairman, this is for $1.5 million.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the committee? The public?
At a previous meeting, Mr. Doherty, I asked the board if they might be willing to have some type of analysis or evaluation so that the people of Wilmington can better understand why we're having to pay this amount of money each year. In other words, if our retirees are trusting that the Middlesex retirement system is managing their money properly and responsibly and returning an investment that's, say, above and beyond inflation. But you never got back to us with that. So I guess my question to you is, have you gotten any information as to what the Middlesex retirement system has been returning?
Is that broken or? No. Did it break? John, can you?
Sorry about that, folks. Mr. Doherty, can you tell us, after having many deliberations leading up to this meeting, what the Middlesex retirement system, just in the past year, not the whole history of it, but just in the past year, what they've returned from the investment and why we have to, are we bailing them out of from bad investments?
Thank you for your comment, but you can contact the retirement system.
Pardon me?
You can contact the retirement system.
Are you the finance committee?
Yes, we are.
What's your job?
Yeah, not for anything. You can sit down, Mr. McDonald.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
Any other comments? Seeing none. Next.
Article 28, to see what sum the town will vote to transfer into various line items of the fiscal year 2024 budget from other line items of said budget and from other available funds, or take any other action related thereto.
Mr. Chairman, we have no transfers at this time.
Okay, great, thank you. Article 29 was a planning board article. We'll go on to the next one.
I believe Article 30 was also a planning board article, so I think the next article is Article 31, which is on page 18. To see if the town will vote to approve the Shawshene Valley Regional Vocational Technical School District Committee's vote on December 19th, 2023, to establish a stabilization fund pursuant to Section 16G.5 of Chapter 71 of the Massachusetts General Laws, said stabilization fund to be invested and to retain its own interest earnings as, I believe, provided by law, and further set up an operational line item to be created to transfer available monies into said stabilization fund or take any other action related thereto.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Any questions from the public?
What's that total amount again?
Go ahead.
What's the dollar amount? There's no dollar amount? Okay. And where will it be invested? You don't know? Nope. Nobody knows where?
It would be up to the Shawshene Valley School Committee.
Yeah, because when I was at a previous meeting, it seemed like they could use funds for whatever they want to. And I believe Ms. Galizzo was opposed to this, and I was very proud of her for being opposed to it, and I'm also opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none? Next.
Article 32, to see if the town will vote in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 77 of the Acts of 2023 to rescind the vote taken under Article 35 of the April 22nd, 2023 town meeting, creating a special opioid settlement stabilization fund and dictating 100% of the opioid litigation settlement funds received by the town to such fund pursuant to MGL Chapter 40, Section 5B. Such funds henceforth to be placed in a special revenue fund to be expended without further appropriation for all of the purposes allowed by law, including those outlined in applicable opioid litigation settlement documents, or take any other action related thereto.
Any questions? Mr. Town Manager?
Mr. Chair, this is because of change of a law, we no longer need this stabilization fund.
Okay. Will the article be withdrawn? Oh, okay.
To kind of reverse what we did, not reverse, but change what we did last year.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Articles 33, 34, and 35 for the planning board. Article 36.
Article 36, to see if the town will vote to rename the Woburn Street School to be called Richardson Elementary School. Supporting history. The Richardson family, formerly of 280 Woburn Street, Wilmington, Mass., for many years operated their working farm, hiring and educating the youth in the neighborhood area. They gave their farm, known as Weegate Farm, as a gift to the town of Wilmington, as a representative farm of Wilmington's historic small-town farming community that contributed to the town as food producers, employers, and businesses.
And this is a petitioned article, and the petitioner is here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, folks, for, I was on the Board of Selectmen in 1980 to 1993, and had a heart attack and a stroke. So, excuse me. It's a little rough for me to make this appearance tonight. I want to say thank you very much for your contributions to the town of Wilmington. I served with Rockwell DePasquale, Aldo Kyra, Bobby Kane, Bobby Doucette, John and Bimbo, and Sterling Morris was the town manager at the time. I was only 30 years old. In 3 weeks, I turned 73. Boy, what a, and the town has come through some changes, and it's people like yourselves that give up your time to make our town a better town. So I want to say thank you very much for your contribution, and also to the professionalism of our department heads. Thank you for all you do to make our town better. I love the town here, and if I get a little emotional, I'm sorry about that. It's a beautiful town. 1950, my parents came out of Cambridge. Some of them moved up here to Wilmington, and the town has always been good to us. My father was a police officer for 29 years in this town, and as a kid growing up in Wilmington, I couldn't be prouder. And you people are doing a great job. I want to say thank you very much for what you're doing for us. Thank you, folks.
Sir,
Thank you very much.
Sir, your
for that.
reasons, your
And
reasons for
so-
wanting to rename the school?
So I want to, I grew up on 29 Oak Ridge Circle, which is part of the neighborhood of the Woburn Street School area. And the Richardson farm was, the Richardson family was a wonderful family in Wilmington. Alvin and Maud Richardson, they would hire the children, the youth of Wilmington in the neighborhood there to work on their farm and learn the agricultural lifestyle. And myself, I milked the cows and got the eggs and put them in the basket. And it was a working farm. It was called the Wheelgate Farm. And they did so much for the neighborhood and for that area. They maintained the character, the New England style of character along Woburn Street, going right down to Concord Street for many years. And some of you may know where FedEx is off of Fordham Road. Well, we had our own little field of dreams for those of us who lived off of Park Street Estates, Gowing Road, and Marcus and Oak Ridge Circle. They had a big hay field over there, and all us kids used to go over there and play baseball on that field. So we had our own little field of dreams right here in Wilmington, way back then in the 50s. And but anyways, this family here, the Richardson family, gave to their community, and they had 3 daughters. Alvin and Maud had 3 daughters. There was Eleanor and Willard and Winifred. And Winifred was her intention to give as a gift to the town of Wilmington their property, which was about 5.7 acres, and their bonds, their house, and all as a gift to the town of Wilmington. And I thought it would be a nice gesture because of their philanthropy to give their property and maintaining the New England character of the community, and the name of the Woburn Street School after that family. They could have easily, I heard earlier tonight in the discussion about open space. Well, when I was on the Board of Selectmen, that was one of the things we tried to maintain is the open space. Let's keep Wilmington, you know, the character of the town intact. That was our philosophy back then, and it still is, I believe, today. So Wilmington is a beautiful little town. When I was a kid, it was only 2,000 population. I believe it's somewhere around 24,000 now. So, you know, we're doing something right. It's a great town. It's a beautiful town. It's great people here. And I'm so proud to be a resident and citizen of this community. And I want to thank the town manager, assistant town manager, acting town manager, Lou. She's doing a great job. Keep up the good work, Lou. Okay? Thank you, Lou. When I was on the board, yes, thank you. He deserves that. Very good. Thank you, folks. I served on the Board of Selectmen. We had Sterling Morris, Buzz Stapczynski, and Jeff Hull was the assistant town manager. And we had some really good management here in Wilmington. A lot of professional people, and we still do. We're still doing the right things here. And Lou is continuing on that same thread. So thank you, Lou, for your great job. I can speak for Rocco DiPasquale and all the members of the Board of Selectmen that I served with. And I want to say thank you on their behalf, too. You're welcome.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, so folks, thank you. I hope you might support my article here. The Richardson family, a beautiful Wilmington family.
Thank you, sir. That's being end of the review of the town warrant. The Finance Committee will meet on Thursday at 7 o'clock in room 9 to vote on the warrant.
Can I ask a question about that last article?
Sure.
Is there a process to name schools independent of town meeting, or is town meeting what role does the school committee have in naming schools, or is it exclusively through town meeting? If I could add, through you perhaps,
okay.
to town council?
Town council or town manager?
I just want to make sure we're going to do this. I want to make sure we have the authority to do it.
Thank you. It's an interesting question. There's no actual formal process, but ultimately, obviously, the school committee, school department has care, custody, and control of its property. So this would be a resolution essentially for town meeting. It's certainly something that could be considered by town meeting, and that will be referred to the school committee for final action.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Mr. Chair, could I just ask if the town knows the property of 280 Woburn Street, is that owned by the town, or do we know what has happened with that property?
Mr. Town Manager? Is 280 Woburn Street owned by the town? Yeah.
The farm that's referenced in the warrant article, in the petition
The
article.
Richardson Farm. It's not? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the last article? Seeing none?
Chair, if I may, thank you all for, like the fine gentleman said, for volunteering your time on behalf of the town. And I, once again, would like to publicly thank the department heads that are here. Superintendent Brand took the time out of their night to come and support the town and this budget and all that we do. Get ready for town meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thank them as well. Next article, next item is other business. Does the committee have any other business? Seeing none, we'll go on to the next. Minutes of March 14th. Has everyone read them?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? All opposed? Passes. Next is any public comments? Seeing none. Important dates, again, is Thursday in room 9 at 7 o'clock, where we do the voting. And we don't take comments while we vote. Any, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Opposed? Passes. This meeting's over.